My name is Serena, and this is my love story. A journey of trust, adventure, and an unexpected proposal that changed everything. I've been married to Daniel for 5 years, and we live in Texas, where our life together has been nothing short of wonderful. He works for a well-established company, and I've always admired his dedication, not just to his career but to us. Our relationship is built on love, trust, and an unbreakable bond. Daniel has a way of making life exciting, turning even the most ordinary moments into something special. Whether it's surprising me with flowers for no reason or planning spontaneous road trips, he always finds a way to keep the spark alive. But nothing could have prepared me for what he had planned next. A few weeks ago, he told me he had a surprise, an unexpected getaway to New York. The thought of escaping our routine and exploring one of the most vibrant cities in the world together felt like a dream come true. But there was one detail I hadn't anticipated. Daniel had invited his best friend, John, to join us. John and Daniel had been friends since college, and over the years, he had become like family. He was funny, respectful, and easy to be around. Still, I couldn't help but wonder why Daniel wanted him on a trip I had assumed was meant to be just for the two of us. When I asked, Daniel simply smiled and said, "Trust me. You'll understand soon." I didn't press him further. Surprises were part of his nature, so I chose to embrace the excitement and look forward to the adventure ahead. As soon as we landed in New York, the city's energy pulled us in. The dazzling lights, the buzzing streets, and the sheer thrill of being in such a lively place were intoxicating. The first few days were filled with laughter and exploration. We wandered through Central Park, took a scenic boat ride, and even made it to the top of the Empire State Building. John was great company, always cracking jokes and keeping things light. It felt like the perfect mix of romance and friendship. But as the days passed, I sensed a shift in Daniel. He seemed more thoughtful, as if something was weighing on his mind. More than once, I caught him exchanging glances with John, silent, knowing looks that hinted at something unsaid. It was subtle, but I could feel it. Instead of questioning, I decided to wait and see what unfolded. Then, one evening, Daniel told me he had planned a special dinner. The restaurant he chose was elegant, with dim lighting and soft music playing in the background. The ambience was undeniably romantic, yet there was an undercurrent of intensity in the air. John was with us, but even he seemed different, quieter, as if he, too, knew something I didn't. As we enjoyed our meal, Daniel reached for my hand. His grip was warm and steady, but there was an unmistakable seriousness in his eyes. He took a deep breath before speaking, and in that moment I knew, whatever he was about to say would change everything. He gazed at me with an intensity one had rarely seen before, his fingers tightening around mine. The world around us seemed to fade, leaving only the weight of the moment between us. "I have something to ask you," he said, his voice calm yet firm. "And I need you to listen with an open heart." A shift in the air made my pulse quicken. I glanced at John, who sat across from us, his expression unreadable. My chest tightened as anticipation built. Daniel took another deep breath. "I love you, Serena. More than anything in this world," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "And because I love you, I want us to be completely honest with each other, to explore life in ways that will make us even stronger." I nodded, waiting. Daniel hesitated for a brief moment before speaking again. "There's something I want you to consider," he said, his voice careful. "Something different. I want you to experience happiness in a way you never have before, with someone I trust completely." His gaze flickered toward John for the briefest second before returning to me. "I want you to be with him." "With John." Silence. I sat frozen, unable to process his words. My mind struggled to make sense of what he had just said. This couldn't be real. My husband, the man I loved with all my heart, was asking me to be with his best friend. Across from us, John remained still, his hands folded neatly in front of him. His expression was controlled, careful. He wasn't surprised. He had known. All along, he had known. "Daniel, what are you saying?" My voice barely made it past my lips. He leaned in closer, his eyes searching mine. I trust you. I trust him. And I want you to have this choice, without guilt, without fear. Just honesty. I stared at him, my pulse racing. I know this might not make sense right now, but I've thought about it for a long time, he continued. I see the way John looks at you. I know he would never act on it because he respects me too much. But I also know that you deserve to be loved, completely and unconditionally, in every possible way. 1,000 thoughts collided in my mind. Was this a test? Was Daniel unhappy? Had I done something wrong? But as I looked into his eyes, I saw no doubt, no hesitation, only love. Pure, unwavering love. I turned to John, desperate for some kind of answer. His jaw was clenched, his entire body tense, as if he had been holding something back for far too long. Serena, he said quietly, his voice steady despite the weight of his words, I would never cross that line. But Daniel came to me with this, and I told him it wasn't my decision to make. I could hear the restraint in his tone. He wasn't taking this lightly. I exhaled slowly. And what if I say no? Daniel's lips curved into a gentle smile, his grip on my hand never wavering. Then we go home, and nothing changes. I will love you just the same. This isn't about replacing anything, it's about giving you a choice. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to steady the storm in my mind. My husband had just given me a freedom I never expected. A choice that could alter everything. My hands felt cold against the warmth of his touch. My heart pounded, tangled in a mix of confusion and curiosity. This was something I had never imagined, let alone considered. The idea seemed impossible, yet Daniel's sincerity made it real. I searched his face for doubt, for hesitation, anything to suggest this was a fleeting thought he would soon take back. But all I found was certainty. He had already come to terms with his decision long before speaking it aloud. He wasn't unsure. He wasn't testing me. He truly meant it. John remained silent, his gaze fixed on the table, as if he wished to disappear. The man who had always been so self-assured, so full of life, now looked as though he was struggling with emotions he had buried for too long. I inhaled deeply, trying to steady myself. Why? Daniel's fingers tightened around mine, just slightly. Because I love you enough to let you explore what brings you happiness. And because I see the way John looks at you when he thinks I'm not watching. His voice softened. He loves you too, even if he'll never admit it. John's head snapped up. Daniel. But Daniel lifted a hand, silencing him. Don't deny it. I've known for a long time. And I know you would never act on it because you respect me. But what if you didn't have to hold back? What if Serena had the chance to follow her heart, without guilt? John ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. This isn't fair to her. You can't put this on her like it's an easy decision. Daniel turned back to me, his expression soft. I'm not forcing anything on you, Serena. I'm giving you something most people never get. The freedom to choose. Without fear of losing what we already have. The weight of the moment pressed down on me. This was more than just a proposal. It was a test of everything I thought I knew. I had always believed I understood love, trust, and the depths of human connection. But in that moment, as John looked at me, I saw something in his eyes. Something raw, something restrained, something I couldn't quite name. Serena, he said softly, his voice laced with hesitation. You don't have to do this. I won't let you feel pressured, no matter what Daniel says. This has to be your choice. There it was again, that word. Choice. For so long, I had seen love as devotion to one person, a commitment that meant staying within the boundaries we set for ourselves. Yet here was my husband, offering me a love that wasn't about ownership but about growth. He wasn't letting me go. He was letting me become. I thought about every moment John and I had shared. The way he made me laugh. The lingering glances that lasted just a second too long. The conversations where words remained unspoken. Had I been blind to something that had always been there? Or had I been too afraid to see it? I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. If I do this, I whispered, barely trusting my own voice, nothing between us changes? Daniel's smile was calm, reassuring. Nothing changes, unless you want it to. I turned to John. His gaze met mine, emotions warring beneath the surface. Then, slowly, he nodded. The decision was mine. A weight settled in my chest, heavy, yet strangely exhilarating. I had spent years believing love had rules, that commitment meant staying within the limits we created. But Daniel had torn down those walls, showing me that love wasn't about restrictions. It was about trust, about giving without fear of losing. I looked at the man who had been my rock, my safe place. He wasn't asking me to walk away from what we had. He was offering something deeper, a chance to explore emotions that had lingered just out of reach for too long. He was giving me freedom, not as a way to push me away, but as a way to help me understand my own heart. John remained silent, but his body spoke for him. The way he held his breath, the tension in his jaw, the subtle twitch of his fingers, as if stopping himself from reaching out. He had never allowed himself to consider this, never let the thought take shape. But now, there was no denying it. I turned back to Daniel. And you're truly okay with this? My voice was steady, but inside, I felt like I was stepping into the unknown. His expression softened, his smile unwavering. I wouldn't have said it if I wasn't. I know what we have, Serena. Nothing will ever change that. John exhaled sharply, shaking his head as if trying to clear thoughts he had buried for years. This feels unreal, he admitted. I've spent so long convincing myself I couldn't, that I shouldn't. He stopped, his restraint cracking. I don't want to ruin anything. Before I could second-guess myself, I reached for his hand. The moment my fingers brushed against his, a shudder ran through him, like he had been holding back something powerful for too long. This doesn't have to ruin anything, I murmured. Maybe. It's just another way love can exist. John's fingers tightened around mine. And for the first time, he didn't pull away. The walls he had built around himself began to crumble. The hesitation in his eyes was replaced by something deeper, something undeniable. Daniel watched us, his expression calm, content. He had seen this moment coming before any of us had the courage to admit it. And now, here we were, standing at the edge of something unknown. Something terrifying. Something strangely beautiful. That night, everything changed. Not in a way that shattered us, but in a way that redefined us. Love didn't have to fit inside the perfect box I had once believed in. It didn't have to follow the rules we were taught. It could be vast, open, limitless. When we returned to Texas, life carried on as before. Yet, somehow, everything felt different. The bond between Daniel and me was stronger, deepened by a new understanding. And John, he was still Daniel's best friend. But now, he was something more to me too. Not every love story follows a conventional path. Sometimes, love is about trust, about letting go of fear, about embracing what feels right, even when the world doesn't understand it.